Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 206. To make a fine film, you need three things: a great script, and a great script. Alfred Hitchcock.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Video Blocks. Now, guys, when I was shooting my show for Legendary Pictures, and I did that 96 pages in 4 days, I actually got into post and we used a lot of stock footage, stock sounds, and even some graphics from Video Blocks. They are an amazing resource. With your membership, you are granted the rights to use that footage forever, in perpetuity, on any projects you want to. So if you want to try a 7-day free trial, and by the way, anything you download during those 7 days is yours to keep. And if you decide to stay, you get 84% off the yearly membership. It is well worth it, guys. Trust me, if you do a lot of production, it is something you really need. So just head over to videoblocks.com/hustle. So today, guys, we have a special episode. We have a crossover episode with the podcast Just Shoot It, which is hosted by Matt Enlow and Oren Kaplan. And these guys, they have a pretty cool podcast, and they talk a lot about filmmaking and talk to filmmakers and things like that. And they come from the perspective of the director, because they're both professional directors working in Hollywood today. And it was really interesting. We had a very energetic and sometimes heated discussion in regards to the state of the film business and from our both perspectives. And I thought it was really great, very informative, and a lot of fun to listen to. We thought that we would share our audiences, our tribes together, and kind of introduce each other to each other's audiences. And I thought it'd be a lot of fun. So without any further ado, enjoy my conversation with Matt Enlow and Oren Kaplan from Just Shoot It.
Okay, so we are here with Alex Ferrari.
What's up, guys?
How's it going, man?
Good, man. Good.
Thanks for reaching out to us and saying let's chat.
Absolutely, man. I'm a fan of the show, and the filmmakers. There's a few of us doing these podcasts, so I think it's time for us to kind of join forces and help each other out as much as we can, because it's a small community. And if we can share more information with everybody, the better.
Well, what do you consider the community? Like, when you say the community, are you talking about directors?
No, filmmakers in general. My community is made up from everybody, from the person who just wants to thinking about making a movie, all the way to the high-end professional that might need help with distribution, and they've never self-distributed a movie or not even gone down the distribution line. So I get everybody: screenwriters, filmmakers, directors, cinematographers, every discipline listens to me.
And you do all types of filmmaking: commercials, corporate videos, feature films, everything?
I mostly focus on independent film. I have had commercial stuff. Since I'm a commercial director and I'm a music video director, I've had episodes that go around that stuff, but I'm going to say 95% focus on independent filmmaking and being able to make an independent film or series now, because streaming series are such a big thing now, and so many more filmmakers are going towards that world as opposed to film, because it's much harder to make a film in many ways than it is to make a series.
Isn't it funny how it worked out that way?
Isn't it?
Wow.
And is it like you're saying a streaming series? Is there any difference between a streaming series and like a network series?
Yeah, a lot of difference. Money. Sure. Budget is the first big difference. But a lot of times when you're doing a streaming series...
or I mean like a series on HBO versus FX versus Netflix versus Hulu. Isn't it at the end of the day kind of all the same?
Budget. Who
has the bigger budget?
HBO has a much bigger budget than Netflix, depending on what kind of show it is and who's in that show. Hulu has a much different budget, generally speaking, than Netflix does. But again, or HBO. HBO has, what does a Game of Thrones cost an episode?
Sure.
Right, but what does a Curb Your Enthusiasm cost?
Yeah, exactly.
What does a Stranger Things cost?
Exactly. But when I also say streaming, I'm also saying independent independent series that are streaming. So there's a lot of filmmakers who are going out and raising $100,000, $200,000.
What we used to call a web series, maybe.
Right. Yes, that's a dirty word, web series. You can't call it a web series anymore.
Not when I was making them.
Yeah,
It is weird, right?
It's weird, right? It's super weird because, I always, anytime someone says, I'm going to make a web series, I'm like, first thing, you got to stop calling it a web series and call it a streaming series. And the real, it's a marketing perception thing. You say a web series, they think YouTube.
I say digital series.
I say digital
series works fine as well.
Yeah,
Streaming or digital series works much better than web series.
Yeah. When I worked at Disney, I directed web series. But now when I tell people what I did there, I say I directed a digital like a digital show, episodic.
A digital episodic show, right?
Yeah.
I think you just call it a show at this point, right?
Yeah. On IMDb, they put TV show or
right.
something.
Yeah, it's always, because they haven't caught on yet to what's digital. And thank God they haven't because it makes you look bigger.
Yeah, right.
They use this. Look at all the TV they've
fancy.
done.
Wow, look at that.
It's funny. It kind of has the opposite effect. Sometimes I'll see someone and they'll have like a TV credit on IMDb. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. And then it turns out it's like a real TV show.
Right. But there's just so much content out there. You can't even keep track of it. I mean,
Sure.
When we were coming up, we could watch everything. We literally could watch every movie that came out that week at the video store or every series. I'm like, you could really, but now there's I think 500 scripted series.
Yeah, I think that's the number.
That's the number, like 450, 500. And that's insane. Like I know shows that have massive audiences that I've never seen an episode of.
Sure. I think it's more interesting when those audiences are very small, right? Like, but still have the same sort of budget. Not even passion. I'm talking about that we're in a bubble, right? And that like scripted episodic series eventually, sooner than later, probably are going to start going away. And that number of 500 is going to be less and less.
I would agree with you.
But even like a Mad Men that won every award, like nobody watched it outside of LA, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the actual numbers on Mad Men, but like
it was like 3. I saw the number. Actually, I did just see an article with the numbers, and it was like 3. I think it never hit more than 3-4 million.
Oh, no, I'm sure it's less than that.
Even less than that, probably like 1.8 or something like that. Yeah.
I can't remember the exact numbers, but realizing like, more people watch College Humor sketches that I shoot than watch the newest episode of Girls. Like, I'd be disappointed with the performance of like a funny internet sketch comedy video relative to plenty of premium, zeitgeisty, Emmy award-winning TV.
When I was working on the Quiznos campaign, we were doing all these parodies, and I pitched them. They had this like lobster sandwich in it. I was just going to do like a video called Lobsters, which is like a girls parody.
Sure.
And Quiznos, based in Denver, none of them had ever seen Girls, and they're like, we don't know what that show is or like why anyone would care about it. I was like, what are you talking about? It's the biggest show. All the teens are talking about it. No, and they're like, nope. It's just you.
But I mean, you look at YouTube. I mean, you got these YouTubers that are, they put out an episode of them just sitting there talking and they get 2-3 million downloads. Sure. So that's more than most television shows.
I mean, and like millions of people are listening to this show as we speak, right?
If not billions, sir. If not billions. But it's true though. And the barrier to entry has gotten so affordable that, I mean, YouTube is a perfect example. These guys who have 5, 6, 7, 8 million followers, and they just put out these little videos that for their audience works beautifully with, either sometimes little production value or it's just them talking or whatever it is, but it's content, and like I said before on another show, an hour of content. If I'm watching an hour of something, it doesn't matter if it costs $100 million or $100, still an hour. And that's where before you couldn't make an hour of content for $100. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because we lump all pre-recorded linear video content together, right? Correct. But like the difference between, say, the video of us all like shooting the shit around a table versus a vlog that's maybe a little bit more produced versus Conan or a feature. Yeah. Like doing a monologue or interacting with your community or your fan base versus scripted. It all gets lumped together, and it's always been so strange and so fascinating to me. And I feel like I've seen a lot of articles recently that are like about the nature of premium advertisers getting upset with advertising against less than premium content, and that there's kind of a course correction. They're going back to more traditional avenues of like broadcast and cable, even though YouTube ad spends are like through the roof right now.
Obscene.
So we'll see.
Well,
see.
nowadays, I feel, at least when I'm doing like commercial stuff, if it's going to be like a YouTube pre-roll ad, it is literally playing at the same place that the Geico and the Little Caesars and the State Farm commercials are playing. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel like even though it's not a broadcast ad, it's basically,
it might as well be.
Yeah, it might as well be. It's a
going to get
15
more
or a 30-second ad.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. It'll get more eyes than a network ad in many ways.
Yeah, you just won't get the cash.
Yeah, it's not the same. Cool. Exactly.
Well, let's just to back up a little. So you have a podcast, obviously, Indie Film Hustle. You have a website. You have this whole basically kind of like an educational film education community that you've built over the past couple of years, and you're also a director. And so when you set out to create this, kind of like Indie Film Hustle, was there any connection to your directing? Like aside from your experience, like did you do it to try to get more jobs?
No, I mean, who in their right mind would start a podcast or a blog to get more directing work? Like that's just craziness.
Funny story. It did happen for me.
No, and it did happen for me as well. Sure. But you don't go into it thinking that you're gonna that was the last thing.
It is a bad plan to go start a podcast in order to advance your career.
Well, I mean, I guess that's what I think I'm asking. What I think is worth discussing is like there's filmmakers, we have listeners, you have listeners that want to move to LA and make movies or TV shows or commercials or whatever.
Sure.
And they're writing and they're pitching and they're doing all this stuff, but they're not that busy. Like what are the other things they can be doing to kind of generate a network and a community and like basically opportunities for work? Like for us, this is one of those things. Like, is that kind of part of what drives you for Indie Film Hustle? No,
what drives me, I mean, look, I wouldn't be lying to you if I didn't say insane amount of opportunities have opened up. I've got, I landed a $10 million Hulu job, doing all the post-production for it purely because of my podcast. Like, really? The producer listened to the podcast and said, hey, I need some help with post. And I'm like, okay, great. And then all of a sudden I got the job. And
so you were post soup or?
I was on that one. I was the online editor, color grader, and I did all the deliverables for the Hulu show. And I handled all the visual effects, like placing it all in the online.
Can you tell us what show?
Yeah, it was Dimension 404.
Oh, cool.
With Rocket Jump.
Right. Yeah, Freddie W's show. Or
Rocket
Jump's show?
Yeah, Rocket Jump. Yeah, I worked with Rocket Jump. Which was an education in itself, working with those guys. And
Matt went to college with all those guys.
Did you?
Well, I'm a little bit older than those dudes. So
okay.
Really like my roommate's little brother.
Was like you farted in a school chair that they sat in.
I think I'm 3 or 4 years. There was a little bit of overlap. Anyway.
Yeah, but Des and Freddie and Matt, those guys were awesome to work with. And, I picked their brain about how they built their community. And I think a 2-hour podcast with Des just about how they built, this massive community. And then I landed a show that I did a digital series for Legendary Pictures recently, and that was again because of the show. So those doors open up a lot, but it was not my focus. I didn't open up, I didn't start a podcast and start up Indie Film Hustle to go, this is going to get me directing work, because on paper that sounds ridiculous.
Sure, and it's more really that there's a great opportunity in meeting other filmmakers, right? Yeah, well, that's just plain old networking, but also like you would do it for fun anyway.
Right. I mean, I have access, and I'm sure you guys do, to you meet these directors or screenwriters or producers or financiers or whoever that you would have never in a million years been able to sit down and talk to for an hour and a half and make a connection of some sort with them. So the podcast is extremely powerful for that. But if other filmmakers want to try to get in on that game, it's going to be tough because you guys have been doing this for 2 years. I've been doing it for 2.5 years. This is a long game. This is not a short game. And you've got to love what you're doing. But the main reason I even opened up Indie Film Hustle and started is because I honestly wanted to help filmmakers, because I found there was so much misinformation out there. And there's not a lot of people that have actually walked the walk who were talking.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
And can you name 5 of these common misconceptions that you kind of set out to correct? And they don't have to be the 5 biggest ones, just 5 off the top of your head.
I mean that you should Your distribution plan should be Sundance. That is your distribution plan, that you're going to make a movie and I'm going to get into Sundance and win, and then I'm going to get $1 million and live in the Hollywood Hills. That's
like the Craigslist posting that's like, please come work on a Sundance submitted short film.
Short film, no less.
Yeah, I'm working on a project that's being submitted to Sundance.
Right.
Yeah, there actually is not a project that is not submitted.
Right. Exactly. So those kind of things, understanding marketing, understanding how to build an audience, how to distribute your own film, just how to put as many tools in your toolbox. You know, I'm a kind of jack of all trades kind of filmmaker. So I learned every aspect of the business because I needed to. I was,
Sure.
I hate to say I came up from the street, but I started in a very small market in Miami. So you had to just to be able to live. I've only been out here for 10 years. And when I got out here, it was
it sounds funny to say that, but that is about how long it takes to like kind of get into the community.
Right. It takes a while to get going, especially if you come in now. Like 10 years ago was a lot easier than coming in today.
I feel like Miami actually as a scene is really kind of like hopping right now. Like I feel like more and more I'm hearing about people shooting in Miami. And
have you heard of Moonlight?
Yes.
Oscar winner. Ballers. Not Oscar winner. Yeah.
And now shooting in Atlanta.
Is that right?
Yeah, they left Miami.
That sucks, wait, does the show still take place in Miami?
No, I don't know. I haven't seen the new season, but they did leave. I think it's Louisiana or Atlanta.
I'm really behind on my Ballers as well.
I do got it's on my list. I really do want to watch Ballers. I've not seen
First
it
season
yet.
is great. That's about all you have to watch.
Way.
Second season is horrible.
It's just like
it's great in like an entourage way. It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun. Yeah,
and there's like a breakout performance in there. I would say
look out for this guy, The Rock.
No, I forget Isaiah Washington.
Yeah.
No, what's his name? He's Denzel Washington's son. He's like one of the main football players.
Oh, nice.
Forget his name, but he's really
he
good.
is quite good. Yeah.
So I lost track what we were talking about.
Oh, you were talking about
the 5 things. Yeah. So those are the kind of things I kind of set out to kind of show, and under, like basic understanding is something called post-production workflow. And understanding that concept, because I've seen so many filmmakers walk through my doors who had no understanding about workflow, and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to go shoot this, and I'm going to shoot it on 5 cameras, and I'm going to edit it on 2 different systems, and I'm going to DIT it or download it, on the side somewhere, and then I'm going to use proxies. Then we're going to come back and reconnect the red files and like all this kind of horror stories that cost filmmakers thousands and thousands of dollars, or just stops the movie. I know I remember one movie was in the kid's hard drive for like 2 years because he could not afford to get, and it was shot
cable.
Well, it was also shot on the Red One back when Red One's workflow was challenging to say the least. So they brought it to me. I'm like, I can do it for you, but I can't do this for free. This is going to be a lot of work. Yeah. And the poor kid was like waiting until he finally got the money to get his movie out. So those are the kind of things that I wanted to try to help, because that's just simple conversation could have helped that project go all the way through.
This is how to prep a project.
Just understanding basic workflow.
What do you see between filmmakers that make one movie and like the people that have sustainable filmmaking careers?
What's the difference? Yeah, that's a thing that we think about all the time. The difference between a first-time filmmaker getting one movie made and then never making another one again, which is a common thing we see all the time, right?
Yeah, most filmmakers.
And what's the difference between that and the person who makes a living doing it?
Yeah, what do you? Yeah, I guess, and that's what we try to talk about in our podcast. How can you make a living as a filmmaker, and not like crowdfund this and do this and meet a rich dentist? Like not the like credit card filmmaker, but the sustainable life filmmaker that can live forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Put food on the table for his family and so on and so forth. Yeah. I mean,
and what mistakes, what misperceptions do people have about that you kind of talk about through Indie Film Hustle?
Well, through Indie Film Hustle, I talk, let me see, with filmmakers, I know more filmmakers who don't do a second feature than do a second feature, because if you don't know how to do the first one right, meaning you overextend yourself, you become too ambitious, you spend too much money, have no idea how to make money with it, you're not going to get an opportunity to make a second one. No one's going to hire you. So that means that you're going to have to do the credit card thing. And then, when you make a $250,000 movie, chances of you making a $10,000 movie are pretty nil, unless you started at the 10,000 world. So you started at the 250. So and then you're done. And then you're done at that point. What I see filmmakers, at least that I've seen who've made it, is they're smart about it. I had a friend of mine who had a big hit with a really low budget film.
What was the film?
It was called Blackballed with my buddy Brant. He's been on the show, and he made a movie. He used to be the tape vault operator over at Comedy Central, and
cool.
He did this like little movie on the weekends. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. I think his budget was like 30 grand or something like that when it was all said and done. And he got some investors.
It's like maybe partially improvised as well.
It was mostly, it was mostly because those guys were amazing improvisers. So they kind of shot a bunch of stuff on like the Canon XL or whatever it was back in the day. And he made that movie and it won South by Southwest and he got an agent and he went down that path. Then he got, if I'm not mistaken, he did I think he did another movie before this big one, but he made a big movie. It was a big movie being $1 million, $2 million movie, but it didn't do well because it wasn't positioned properly and stuff. So what did he do? So after that, many filmmakers would have just been like, I'm done. He went out and did another found footage horror movie, by himself for like no money. And he went out and sold it. And he went out and made money with it. And that put him back on the map. And now he's working on a much bigger budget film, and and then he does commercials on the side and does music videos, other things like that keep him going. But that's smart, you don't give up. And even after, pretty much not a failure, but because it was a fun movie, but it just didn't make money. It was too commercial for the indie and too indie for the commercial. So he was in that really gray area, but he kind of built out his career doing this, like thinking about what the next step is and not putting all his eggs into one basket, which I think is a mistake a lot of filmmakers make. They're like, this is the thing that's going to blow me up. This is the big one that's going to get me the Oscar or the Sundance or whatever that BS is, where the filmmaker who makes a career out of it understands that this is a job, this is one project, and I'm going to have multiple other projects, and I don't put too much emphasis on the one. It has to be good. It has to be great. It has to get to the next level.
Sure.
But it's not the end all be all if it doesn't succeed, and you have to have other things.
It's not your one shot.
It's not your one shot. Look,
But is there kind of the other example? Like, I guess there's one way to think about it. It's like, I want to be a filmmaker. I'm going to make a movie and make the money back so I can make another movie, and I can kind of keep making, like, I'll make the $10,000 feature, then the 100, then the 250, then the $1 million. But then there's also the guy that's like the DP that's shot like a bunch of movies, learned how to make a movie, and then goes and makes Blue Ruin. And the next movie he makes is going to be like a $20 million studio film, right?
Or Green Room, which was, I think, 1.5.
Oh, no way. It was 1.5 million.
No way, 1.5.
With
really?
Patrick Stewart and all these people.
Scale?
We should double check, but like it's not a
$20 million movie.
It's definitely not a 20. They don't make $20 million movies anymore.
They rarely do anymore.
Actually, I realized the only way to make a $20 million movie now is for it to be a female-driven ensemble comedy.
Like Girls Trip or something.
Girls Trip, Rough Night.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Bad Moms.
Yeah.
Bad Moms 2. I mean, and they're great. It's like so awesome, but it's so funny that that's like the new formula for a $20 million movie.
Because they're going to spend probably 50 marketing it.
Sure. Well, and, probably 18 on cast. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think that's probably literally true.
$5 million.
$5 million. All right, so we're meet in the middle.
But
20 times the budget probably for Blue Ruin.
Yeah, Blue Ruin was
but
like
you look at Matt. Is it Matt Webb who did the Spider-Mans?
Mark Webb.
Mark Webb, right? So Mark Webb.
But after a giant music video commercial.
Yeah, Mark Webb
Right.
was like
And then he did 500.
Like he's doing multi-million-dollar music, like commercials.
Sure, of course. Yeah, he's a big guy, but there are those weird scenarios where like, the commercial director, the music video director, or the guy who's in one feature gets a tentpole.
But what's the better strategy? Like, I guess in my mind, it's funny. My first movie, like all I wanted to do was get the investors paid back. That was like my number one thing. And I didn't care if I had to go out and like have people pay me $10
you were
to show
selling
them the
DVDs
movie.
on the
Yeah,
street
I was
corner.
literally my basement is filled with hundreds of DVDs of my movie.
He still hasn't given me one yet.
Do you even own a DVD player?
Yes,
You probably
I'm
own
the one.
a VHS player.
No, that's not true. Everyone, a lot of people have the DVD player still.
Well, I think making as many movies as you can is always the best move. Making as many things as you can, right? You always get better. But I think for my next movie, unless something happens and I get a studio film, which probably won't happen, but for my next movie or even TV series or short film, like to me, it's more about kind of showing my point of view and hopefully proving that I have something interesting to say, or like I'm an interesting filmmaker.
Sure.
Than it is about making money.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing is that your film has to make some sort of money in order to continue to make more art.
But do you think maybe Blue Ruin made money? But.
Yeah. I think that maybe what we're kind of circling around is the fact that we had this dream. I want to get back to talking about dreams actually in a minute as well, because I think dream is kind of a dirty word to me.
I love it.
But the point is that we grew up thinking that a filmmaking career was one thing, right? And over experience and time, and also the industry shifting, now it's something totally different, right?
Tomorrow will be something new.
And tomorrow will be something different. But also like that idea of like striking it rich and moving to the hills doesn't really exist for anyone anymore.
That's the lottery ticket mentality is what I call it. That's the El Mariachis, the Kevin Smiths. That was the 90s.
You're naming people that it's like so long ago.
No, but what about, the Trish C's of the world or whatever, like people that did music videos and then they did a sequel like Pitch Perfect 3 and then their next movie will be
right. But those are very
giant musical.
But there are very few of those examples out there.
Well, but there's this giant studio system. I mean, there's all this content, all these TV shows that need directors. There's all these movies that need directors. There's all these digital series that need directors and commercials and music video here and there, right?
Sure, right.
So these directors have to come from somewhere.
Right.
Scorsese's not going to direct all those things.
He's just going to do the pilot and But so we're in this weird, Oren and I are both in this situation. I haven't done a feature yet, right? But we're both booking series scripted content pretty regularly, right? Like
in the $1 million range.
Yeah. Totally like, if you could travel back in time and be like, hey, this is how you're going to spend, your year. I'm stoked, right? Like just shooting like crazy, a bunch of fun stuff, but I still want to do a feature. Why do I want to do a feature? There's two good reasons. One, ego.
Sure.
Right? That's the thing that drives me constantly. But then the other thing is, I think there is a little bit of a resume building aspect to it. And that's, I think, what, Oren, you're getting at, and we're all kind of circling around, is that it's hard to be taken seriously as a filmmaker without a film.
Absolutely.
I shot,
No, but you don't think you think like Tony Ascenda, who's never made a movie?
Tony said go listen to the podcast, he caught so much shit. He had a great pitch and a great team behind him, but like caught constant shit.
He made American Vandal.
And didn't have
never made a feature.
And like was questioned the entire time. We texted about it a little bit.
And I guess even Paul Briganti, our friend who directs SNL and has done a ton of TV now, he hadn't done a feature before, and he just went and made like a tiny, like a micro budget feature he's doing, even though he's directing like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and all these like great TV shows.
It's a weird thing. The feature, which in all honesty is going away more and more, and it's leaning more towards series.
It's kind of for old people.
I mean, I hate to say it. But I'm always going to watch features. It's
sure.
I love features. It's but I also love. I love watching Stranger Things, and binging on that. That's another kind of entertainment. But I think the feature does still have this kind of cachet, especially within the industry. I just directed my first feature last year, and doors opened just because I did this micro budget feature, and people were just like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" Like, "Oh, now and I'd been directing videos and commercials and shorts that are award winning and all this kind of stuff. And the second you do the feature, everyone just like, oh, okay, now he's a real filmmaker.
But do you think that they perceived you differently, or you perceived you
probably
differently?
A little bit of both.
And that because when you make a feature, you spend so much freaking time on it that you end up telling everyone about it. You're promoting it. You're really pushing it. When you make a digital series, you talk about it for 2 weeks and then you move on to the next thing.
Well, I think also that what the feature is, like a lot of people that were talking to me, it was people that I had known for years that all of a sudden have a different perspective on me, purely because I directed a feature film.
And does it matter if the movie's good or not?
In a lot of ways, yes and no. It all depends. Does it have a nice trailer? You know, at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but you know, like, is the trailer look good?
If it looks good.
Does it look good? Where has it been? Like, I sold it to Hulu.
Do you have any famous actors in it?
Yes. I have some, not famous, but they're all recognizable. Yeah. Everyone you would probably recognize. Oh, that's that person. That
Yeah.
person,
Oh, yeah. That guy died in that thing.
Yeah. But no, I actually had like people from Reno 911 and from Mad TV. So like faces.
Yeah.
It was actually the same actor that was both on Reno 911 and Mad TV.
No, that's just,
But a really good improviser.
I'm just kidding.
yeah, they have wigs on. It was great.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. But no, I lost my train of thought with that.
I was asking if the movie had to be good, and you said that the trailer has to be good.
And in all honesty, in the look, how many people in this town actually watched the film?
Right. Well, but I guess to qualify, right? You said the trailer has to look good, so it's pretty hard to cut a good trailer
From
out
a
of
bad movie. That's
right?
one.
And also, it's hard to get a bad movie into good film festivals. So people aren't going to watch your movie, but they want to know that it's good by signifiers.
But I think what's more important than getting into a film festival, because there's really only 5 that matter.
Sure, that's true. Yeah.
That's only 5 that matter. And I've been in over 600 film festivals, all my projects over the years. And I know the 5.
The LA Funny Films Festival.
Obviously.
Right, the Hollywood
York
Film Festival.
Hollywood Film Festival. New York Funny Film Festival. Sorry.
No. But what's more impressive now is, did you get it on Netflix? Did you get it on Hulu? That is different, because I was just another micro budget film until I sold it to Hulu, because Hulu doesn't take everything.
Yeah,
And
let me
Netflix
ask,
doesn't take-
do you know why Hulu was interested in your film?
It just hit the right note for them. And I think it was probably a combination of the genre. Hopefully, I'm hoping they like the film, and the cast.
Wait, this is the movie about the actress
Meg, yeah, this is Meg.
that's trying to figure out
Like
if she's on the right path.
No, the story is about an actress who is a success. You know, she was successful and she's a working actress, but she's not 21 anymore, and she's kind of left behind. Like, she doesn't do social media, she doesn't do YouTube stuff, and she's like, I've got 20 years of amazing experience, and I've been on big shows, but I can't get booked because this 20-year-old
Because
has
I don't
a
have any
million
Twitter followers.
She has a million Twitter followers. Like, this is so frustrating. And then
you wrote this too, right?
we wrote it together, but she's the one who wrote the final. We came up with the story and we worked
But
together.
obviously something that you could find a personal connection to.
I called her up. I said, Jill, I want to make a movie about your life. And she's like, oh, okay. And we came up with a script. And then she ironed it all out, and she wrote it for her friends. And they came over and we shot in 8 days.
And who paid for it?
I crowdfunded it through my audience.
Oh, wow.
So it was, it was in the profit before we finished the final cut. So
wow, that's cool.
That's how you kind of do it. And then we sold it to Hulu. We did self-distribution through iTunes and Amazon. And then I went through, I wanted to kind of control the distribution on it. And in a lot of ways, I use Meg as an example to my audience to go, look, guys, this is the path. I did it. You can do it as well. And I'm going to take it all the way through. And I'm going to show you how I take it all the way through.
It almost becomes a case study for your audience.
It is,
interesting.
without question. And I did it in many ways as a case study for myself, because after so many years, I'm sure you can relate, that you're like, can I make a movie? Like, what, and you make this big mountain you got to climb. And I just kind of cut that mountain down. And I just
It's funny. I don't have that. I'm like so ready.
So go make it.
Sure. It's honestly,
You have a different problem, which is a problem that I have, that a lot of us have, which is that you have a job offer to go do a digital series or branded content or whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't want to turn it down because there's someone saying, hey, we want you and we're going to give you a crew and pay you and everything's ready to go. You just step in.
and the budget is like significant. And
and here you have to start
It's like a little
from
bit
scratch.
of it's a little bit of golden handcuffs. I think honestly, for me, there's a little bit of like creative indecisiveness I'm dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know I can go make a movie, right? Like I was alluding to the series that, I did the previous years. Like I did 8 half-hour episodes back to back just this summer, right? Like that's 2 movies in a row. So like I know I can do that stuff, and I'm not scared of it. it's more just like, oh, which one do I want to do? Like, what idea is the one that's exciting?
And then tomorrow you wake up and you're 60.
Sure, exactly. Yeah.
And that was what I was afraid of.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Because none of us here are 20 anymore.
I just turned 59.
Exactly. You look fantastic.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man. The secret is beer and salty snacks.
Yes, obviously. Sodium. Lots of sodium.
Yeah, I'm preserved. Sodium.
But yeah, that's how I did it, and by doing that, I did show a lot of my audience that it could be done. But when the second I announced that I went to Hulu, it's like, oh no, you're not just a dude that just made a micro budget film and threw it up on iTunes.
Sure.
Through an aggregator.
Again, it's signifiers, right? It's just
Absolutely.
Like people don't have time to watch your movie, but they need something to grab onto to say, oh, okay, this is good, because there's thousands of movies that they're dealing with. Yeah.
Right? So just by being able to say that it was purchased by Hulu, and then we also went with a foreign distributor to handle all my foreign sales, and we sold China, we sold South Africa, we sold a bunch of territories, which is shocking to me. The
Hulu signifier again, right? Like that's probably part of it.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And now we have other, after AFM, we have other deals on the table as well. So off of this little feature film,
Sure. It only took you 8 days, bro.
It took 8 days, edited in 3 weeks.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
You shot in 8 days?
Yeah.
And you edited in 3 weeks?
I shot it in 8 days. I was a DP on it. It took me 3 weeks to cut it, 4 weeks to color it, because I was the DP, so I want to make sure my stuff looked good.
What did you shoot it on?
I shot on the Blackmagic, Blackmagic 2.5 cinema.
Oh.
We shot 2 camera.
The brick?
Yeah, the little brick, exactly.
Oh, fun.
And we shot it raw because I knew I would need the help.
Yeah.
And I did, and it was the first thing I ever DP'd, meaning the first thing feature. I did a few little things.
Sure.
But I've been a colors for
Why did you
10
choose
years.
to shoot it yourself?
Because I couldn't afford to hire a DP, and also I wanted to do it myself. This story was controlled enough that I think I can make it look good. Because also I'm a colorist. I've been a colorist for 10 years. So I seen what I could do with really bad footage. So I'm like, I can shoot better than this.
Right. You had like a gaffer and a key grip.
The crew was 3 people. It was
Rock
me.
and roll man.
Yeah, it was me. I was a camera and the director. Jill was the slate girl and craft service. I had my gaff and my second B camera, and then I had a guy who held the boom, because I can't call him the sound guy. I actually showed him how to use the Tascam. And here's the record, and I bought the gear, was all my gear, and I taught myself how to record audio, and let's shoot. And I did testing beforehand. I took it to my audio guys, and I was like, "Is this good?"
Lights.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we had some lights, but it was
I'm curious, how many lights?
like 2, 3.
Yeah.
LED?
LEDs, yeah, just LEDs on battery powered.
LEDs are nuts, man. They've changed the whole game.
Oh,
It's like I used to not be able to shoot anything without like an HMI, which costs like
forever.
$120
And it was
a day to
hot, and it
rent.
was big, and you had to
and you
you
need
had to plug
2,000
in.
watts.
To me, the big change is like you don't see people with hot hands. You don't see gloves anymore.
No, you don't need to, not with LEDs, yeah. And they're
Yeah.
so insane. Like you literally, he had you put a brick on the back of it, and we'd stick it on top of a refrigerator.
And you'd forget about it.
And you're good.
Yeah.
And you're good. And you just like turn it on, doesn't get hot. And,
Sure. You're like, I don't like that. And then somebody dials something in on an iPad.
Any
and
color
it's
temperature
different.
you want. Yeah.
Yeah, so we used mostly that, and I think one day we used a dimmer with a China ball for a big outdoor scene. Other than that, that was it. So I really kind of stripped down the process to like, what do I absolutely need to capture image, capture an audio, and tell a story, and then write that story around it. And it was also a scriptment, so it was mostly improv, but we structured out scenes and had story beats that they had to find. But again, the guys that were all my actors, they're just legendary improv people.
Sure.
Reno 9.
They've got it. Yeah. It's like,
So it was like,
you
why
could write a
wouldn't
script,
I?
but why bother?
And did you have an end to each scene? Did you know when to say cut?
Absolutely, yeah. So we just did. It was very Duplass Brothers kind of way, or Joe Swanberg kind of way of just kind of like
A lot of
flowing.
nudity in this movie.
There was no nudity. There was not.
No, that was not really Joe Swanberg.
There was some side boob.
Sure.
There was some side boob and maybe a nipple through a shirt.
No balls. That's
No,
what
there was
I-
no testicles.
So,
There was
well.
no testicles
Well,
in the
then
movie.
I'm not watching it.
Sorry, Joe. Yeah, I think that's really interesting though, because I was just running around shooting some night exteriors that we talked about in another episode. But I wonder if we're about to see kind of a new indie movement of like the 3-man, 5-man crew. Like, I'm curious to see
because lighting has changed so much.
Yeah, with all the stuff that we're talking about, everything
because
has
like 10
changed
years
so
ago,
much.
there was like the DVX 100 or whatever. Like
the
first
DVX
camera,
100A.
Sure.
But it
Oh,
comes,
Greatest camera of all time.
Oh man,
it was amazing.
Right,
I'm gonna name my firstborn the DVX.
That made everyone like everyone can shoot cinematic stuff now, right?
Yes.
But you couldn't light cinematic, so now
You can light
it's
it.
LED. So the next revolution, hopefully 10 years from now, is like some plug-in in After Effects that just adds extras. Because that's the only that to me that's
That is
like
the thing.
Well,
the biggest thing that is like if I want to go make a no-budget movie. To me, like you watch a David Fincher scene, you know, there's two guys talking in a bar. There's like
There's
100
30 people.
extras.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
No, it's true.
They'll never reuse them, and that's what my stuff could never look like that because no one is going to get me 100 extras for a 2-person conversation in a bar.
Right, exactly. But I think honestly, the next revolution is going to be distribution, because I think technically we're at a place where anyone could shoot pretty much anything. Though even the stuff that I just talked about with how I shot it, I mean, I've got 20 odd years behind me.
Sure.
You know,
there's
so
a level of skill that's required,
there's some tools in the toolbox you need to be able to do that. So you need someone like me or someone who has that kind of skill set to be able to handle all those jobs and be able to do it at a decent level.
or just has made 3 movies worth of mistakes. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You could be 22 and have done this a couple times now.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. But, you know, there's something to be said for age and
No
experience.
doubt.
You know, after you do it so many times, it does help. But yeah, the more, look, I'm sure I know for a fact there's 22-year-olds that have done 6 features.
Yeah.
You know, they've been on my show and I'm like, how many features done? Oh yeah, I've done 6. I'm on my 7. How old are you? 19. I'm like,
Yeah.
Is it bad that I don't care at all about distribution? That I spend zero time thinking
I
about
think
it?
that maybe yes. Honestly, I think that because Alex, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that what you're getting at is that it's the final point of the chain, right? And is the thing that has changed significantly. And if we can master distribution and master our audiences and master how to get our movies into people's hands, then you make whatever the fuck you want.
absolutely. And I think, you know, you're coming from a different perspective as far as I don't care about distribution because generally your projects have distribution or have a marketing budget or have a budget period, you know, when you're doing it. But, you know, for people who are making even $100,000 features or $50,000 features or $10,000 features, they have to understand not only distribution, but they also have to understand marketing and audience building and, or at minimum, marketing, and how to use Facebook, which is the most powerful marketing tool on the planet. And if they understand those 3 things, that's, I think, the final thing, because I think it's a crime that any film school today does not teach distribution, marketing, social media, and audience building. It is as crucial in the filmmaking process as lens choice, camera, if you're going to try to do it yourself. If you're going to go into the studio system or you're going to be working with other scenarios, but if you're going to try to do it yourself, which in all honesty, most of us, when you start doing it yourself until you get to a level.
That's how you got to where you are.
Well, yeah, I guess it's not that I never cared about it. Like when I was doing all my YouTube stuff, like
You invented
a
a lot of the garbage that ruined YouTube.
I mean, I was at least part of the.
You were
part of the problem.
I was involved with the people that did it. That would like make 100 YouTube accounts, comment on their own videos, and get them to the top of the front page of YouTube.
You could game
most
a
talked
YouTube like profile or a thumbnail image.
Yeah.
With the best of
you were
them.
the clickbait?
Not
Nice.
clickbait, but I would back when YouTube first started.
Sure.
You couldn't set your own thumbnail. It would be literally the
halfway
middle
part.
frame. Yeah. So if you had a 7-minute video, the frame at 3.5 minutes was what your thumbnail would be. So yes, you would game, like, let's say, like we made this video called Spinning Rainbow, which was about like that spinning rainbow on your Mac, you know, when your computer gets stuck. And,
Beach ball, all right.
Yeah, the beach ball of death or whatever.
Yeah.
And my wife, Kara, there was a shot of her at the end of the video where she's like about to take her shirt off, and then you see the beach ball of death, and you see some cleavage, and it's one of those types of frames. And I made that the middle frame, and the second half of the video is just the spinning ball. But yes, so that's the thumbnail on the video.
The comments must have been beautiful on that one.
So, but that's what you used to have to do to get views. So yes, and my first feature, we got screwed by the distributor. Like they made $1 million and we saw none of the money, all that stuff. But I guess
you don't care.
As a filmmaker, my evolution on thinking about the business has gone from, I used to really care about cameras and lenses and lights and how am I going to buy this and how am I going to make this and how am I going to get people to watch it. And now I'm much more focused on trying to make something that I think is good and people will like, so that I can give it to somebody else to like worry about. Like distribution is its own beast with professionals and people. And like, I don't want to compete against Netflix in distribution. I want to make a show and have Netflix distribute it, or Hulu distribute it. Like, marketing is different, and that's, I think, even the biggest filmmakers in the world are like, oh, there's like the billboards are crappy, or like the artwork is dumb, or like look at this Justice League poster. Like who would see this movie with this dumb poster?
Those posters are so dumb, you guys.
Yeah,
but and you look at like P.T. Anderson shot extra footage for the Magnolia trailer. It's incredible. Like there are those auteurs out there.
See like the Social Network.
The Fincher stuff was
trailers.
Yeah, they're incredible.
The Deadpool, one of the best marketing campaigns.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So marketing, I love marketing, and that's like a lot of what is my background is trying to make videos that are marketing other projects. So I think the marketing side is really important. Advertising, I obviously love.
Yeah, you just don't want to get into like distribution aggregator
uploading
deals.
things to iTunes and do I don't know. I guess it's just like if the goal is to be a filmmaker, why am I wasting my time worrying about how iTunes and Amazon works?
The obvious answer is that you're the only person who really cares. That's the truth, right?
Right.
And so unless...
But I want to make stuff that people care about, I guess. Does that make sense?
But in today's world, in today's landscape, if you don't have the privilege or the opportunity to do what you're saying, to give it to a distribution person or to give it to somebody to market, your work won't get seen. And as every day that goes by and every minute that goes by and another 200 million hours is uploaded to YouTube or online somewhere, the waters are getting muddier and muddier and muddier to the point where, what do you think it's going to look like? The landscape's going to look like in 5 years or in 10 years? It's going to be impossible to get anyone to even pay attention to you unless you have one of these big, companies that will pump, Justice League kind of money out there for your project to get seen, and they'll get lost. So if you don't understand the way that works, you might get left behind as a filmmaker. And it's sad, but it is the reality of, and from my point of view, at least, it's the reality of where we're at and where we're going. I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
But I guess the opposite thing, look, I think there's something pure about making a film and getting people to see it because you think it's people should see it, right? Because you think you're saying something that's worth listening to. And there you're really trying to get the biggest audience you can get, or at least the demo that will connect to your stuff. And then there's the other point of view. I talked about this on the podcast before, like during the writer's strike of 2007 or whatever, I made this video about the writer's strike. And that's like how I got like my first agent, my first manager. It had got like 20,000 views, not a ton, but all like 95% of those 20,000 views were Hollywood people, right? So like look at a show like Broad City, like nobody watched that web show, but Amy Poehler found it, and now those people are super successful and they have this giant show that a lot of people love, but I don't think Alana Glazer and Abby Jacobson care about distribution, right? They just care about making the best show they can make and pushing,
But the thing is, you just said something. Amy Poehler found her. Without Amy, they're still waddling and trying to get an audience.
Find them because she's like opened up New York Times and they're like, check out this awesome web series. She found it because they knew someone and they said, you probably have a better insight.
Well, the reason they were UCB people. And so like it was a buzzy show and they pitched Amy on it. They lived in New York and hung out at the theater that Amy Poehler founded. That is the reason. And then also on top of that, Kent Alterman,
who ran Comedy Central
at this time, knew Amy Poehler. because he was on the UCB TV show back in the day.
Right. Well, everyone knew Amy Poehler.
Sure,
from
but
SNL.
Amy
they were
texted him. Yeah. I mean, maybe not literally, but they were friends. They knew each other from back in the day.
But there's always stories like that. And there's always, we've all fallen into luck, this person knew this person got me that job and that got me that job. But my point is that there's two systems in the world, in the entertainment world. There's the studio or big company system, and then there's the independent. So it all depends on how you go. I don't want to hustle for the next 20 years doing everything myself. You
want an indie film chill.
Look what perfect example is Joe Swanberg. He busted his ass for 12 years making his kind of movie. Whether you like them or not, irrelevant. He had an audience and he made his films and he was unapologetic in how he made them. 1 year he made 6 feature films. That was the 1 year he had to because he had to make money that year. So he had an output deal with IFC and that was the way he did it. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. And then all of a sudden he found a deal with Netflix. He found a home at Netflix where now he's now starting his finishing up his second season. I think it comes out in a few weeks of his series Easy.
Excited. I love that show.
I love that show too. I love that show. And then he did a feature with Jake London. Is it London, right? The guy from
Johnson?
Johnson, yeah, Jake Johnson, yeah.
You're thinking of the guy from
Drinking Buddies?
Dazed and Confused.
Yes. But he's got a home now there. The Duplass brothers have a home now at Netflix.
But I would argue that those guys, like Joe Swanberg, even though he didn't get into the studio system because the studio system was not interested in his type of movie necessarily, but he got into Hollywood. Like you look at the casts of his films, from the very beginning, they're like these top Hollywood actors because
not from the very beginning. Not for the first 15, 20 movies.
How many movies has he made?
He's got 30 features.
Yeah. He's made a bunch of movies.
And the first 15 have
nobody
gave a fuck until basically Drinking Buddies was the first famous person movie.
And that was...
Oh, really?
No. He did something prior to Drinking Buddies. But Duplass was in one of his first big ones, but he was still just Duplass.
Yeah.
And they were both nobodies at the time. Other than that, he was just, he had no big stars in it.
Well, I clearly don't have my info correct, but the point is...
Your point still stands, though, because he just got in bed with IFC at the right time.
And that was a moment in time. And that left, and he was left, IFC changed ownership or whatever, and that deal he had went away.
But my point is that he didn't make movies that reached a niche market in the Midwest.
He wasn't on Google Trends figuring out what the...
he wasn't worrying about distribution. He was making stuff that he connected with, and eventually he found famous acters that
I'm gonna because I've studied Joe a lot. So I
have not at all.
Okay, so I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit. The way Joe worked on getting his stuff done is he wholeheartedly was interested in distribution, because if he didn't understand distribution, he wasn't going to make any money. And with his kind of films, if you guys, I'm sure you have seen some of his films, they're not for everybody. You know, as you were saying, there's a lot of balls.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some nudity. But all those movies that he did before he started making Drinking Buddies is still to this day, I think, the biggest budget thing he did, which was a $350,000 budget. And his agents was so hard to get that movie made with Olivia Wilde, was it Olivia Wilde? I forgot.
Jake Johnson.
Jake Johnson and
what's her name?
God. Okay. Kendrick.
Anna
Kendrick.
Yeah.
Even with those stars, they were having trouble getting him a big $350,000 to shoot it on 35 and the whole ball of wax.
What? We could get... Any of us can get $350,000 for those three names.
Now. But back then, even then, Anna wasn't, she was big, but she wasn't as big. She wasn't I don't think Pitch Perfect had come out yet.
But what's the movie, the George Clooney movie?
But she wasn't bankable. There's a difference between being a big movie. Sure, you're an Oscar nominated actress. That's all nice and dandy, but do you sell foreign? Right. That's again, we're back to business. So if you don't understand these basics, it's difficult to, I don't think you need a PhD in this stuff, because I definitely don't have a PhD in it. But you have to understand the basics of it. But that's how Joe got going. I think he didn't do anything. I don't even know what number Drinking Buddies was.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think it was like 25, 23 out of the 30 or something like that.
It was up there for sure.
Right. So so all of that time he was self-distributing or finding distribution for his movies in any place he could, because the self-distribution avenues weren't open back then because those things didn't exist. But he sold to IFC. He sold to a few other, indie. He was really like, when you think indie, he's in that indie.
And was he going to Sundance with any of his earlier
Sundance
stuff?
rejected him mostly, and South by Southwest is what blew him up. South by Southwest found one of his first few features. South by Southwest.
Again, a moment in time where it was like,
it was the Mumblecore moment. It was the Mumblecore moment. When Mumblecore became a thing, it was because that year, I don't know if it was Puffy Chair was at South by or not, but it was Tiny Furniture and, all of those, and he was one of them. And they called it Mumblecore, and that's how he got lost. So he was at the right place, right time. But prior to that moment, he had already done 15, 20 movies, shooting them on VHS, no sound, didn't care, just shot whatever. The GoPro would have been fine for him, total, just editing it on like iMovie, and that was fine for him. But that was his style, and that was the style of the whole Mumblecore movement. But they were, and he said it very clearly once, like, if I can't be taken seriously as a filmmaker, at least I'm going to be prolific. And that's exactly what he did. So now he's at a point in his career where he's got a deal, he's got an output deal, he's doing series, and he has complete creative control, and he has budgets. His big thing was getting into the DGA because he needed insurance for his family. I mean, and if you ever watched that South by Southwest keynote that he did,
sure.
Did you see that one?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It's insane. Like, he tells you the real truth about what it's like being an independent filmmaker financially. So in my opinion, I do think you do need to know some of it, because if you don't, you will, even if you're working within the studio system, if you don't have a basic understanding of it, you will get screwed at one point or another.
Right. Well, and I think Oren doesn't, it's not that you...
I don't disagree. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I guess there's, like, just thinking out loud here, that there's kind of two strategies as a filmmaker. You can basically make what you want, keep making stuff, and thinking about distribution and like the Joe Swanberg method or whatever you're talking about. Just keep making things and get them to as many people as possible, whether you're building a following on YouTube or whether you're going to a lot of film festivals or whatever. So that's strategy one. And the strategy two is make something that someone in Hollywood will really like and want to hire you to do that same thing again, but for more money without you having to worry about it.
Yeah, I guess that's the same strategy, though. I think the difference is that in the circumstance where you make the following and no one cares, then you distribute it and you try to figure that out or whatever, and then you have to make memento before somebody cares.
But without following, there is no memento.
Exactly. Right. So,
wait, did you say you have to make memento?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And you said
the following.
Momentum?
No, memento.
Oh, okay.
You have to make momentum to make memento.
Right.
Yeah. But so you get what I'm saying, though. It's like, I don't think that either, you have to do both at the same time, right? Like, you can't try and make a movie that's for Hollywood, and in the same way that you kind of can't make a movie for an audience in a certain sense. You just have to make what you want to make, be true to yourself, be true to your voice, and like make it as good as you can. And then if Hollywood comes a knocking, great. And if not, you still know how to make money off of your movie, so you can make another one, right?
Yeah, I mean, like the point is that if you go down the road and you go down this, it's a very slippery slope, by the way, trying to make something to get Hollywood's attention. Take it from someone who was trying to do it for almost a decade. It is a very slippery slope where you put all your hopes and dreams into this one project that someone magically will come from the Mount Hollywood and anoint you as the director. That is also very, very, you got to be real careful with that, because you know as well as I do, you can't kind of do that. Like, you can make something that's super amazing, but if you're aiming it as specifically to impress somebody in Hollywood, it's a lot of times it fails. I've been in agents' offices, sitting there, and they're like, they saw my short film and they got me into the office, but they're like, hey, look, these are, and they showed me like 5 other shorts from guys around the world who, they are amazing. Never heard of them. You guys have never heard of them, but they did amazing stuff. And I was like, wow, why didn't those guys pop? If I'm here, why those guys? And then why did I, get to where I want to go from it? Where after doing this so long, from my point of view, at least, if you continue to create content that you're true to, if you do it on a budget that you can afford or either find money to do on a smaller budget and just keep producing those, if you're a guy who has 5 feature films and they've all made money in one way, shape, or form, somebody will give you money to make another movie. So, and you look at, and I'll use Joe as a perfect example because look, you look at some of Joe's early work, some of it's unwatchable, and I'm a fan of Joe's, but some of his early stuff was really unwatchable because that was the kind of filmmaking he was doing at the time because that's all he had access to, and a lot of people are really turned off by his work, but he didn't give a crap. Like, this is the kind of work I want to do, and I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to make my $2,000 movies, and I'm just going to keep going down this road, and eventually and that's exactly what he did. He's to the edge. Like, you don't get your first big break until you made 22 features. Right. So it's just a point of view.
But I guess, continuing to play my devil's advocate role, do you think that the type of films you want to make, like, look, Joe Swanberg makes kind of these edgy, sexy character pieces that take place in small towns and houses and apartments and cars.
That's his niche. Yeah.
Right.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
If you want to make a big visual effects monster movie,
sure,
it's a little harder to make a musical for
obviously.
$20,000.
Well, it all depends.
To be taken seriously, I guess.
Well, look at 500 Days of Summer. I mean,
that's not a small movie.
No, but how much was that movie?
I don't know that 500 Days of Summer is like a good example of how to get Spider-Man after that, right? Because that's what you're going.
Yeah.
I think it's commercials and music videos are the
commercials and music videos, commercials and music video didn't get him that job. 500 Days of Summer did. The other stuff was kind of like, and he's also got all that stuff.
It's also Zooey Deschanel and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and
but I've seen movies with big stars that doesn't matter. I mean, the story has to be good. It has to.
Yeah, but it's not a $100,000 movie. Let's look.
No, it's not $100,000 movie. It was a few $1 million movie.
It was a Fox Searchlight film, right?
Right. So I'm probably going to say
film.
I'm going to probably say it was $5 million or below.
$7.5 million.
$7.5 million. All right, so that was a fairly decent budget back in the day when there was those kind of budgets for that kind of movie.
Yes. How's Fox Searchlight doing now?
Exactly. Who was the director of Tron?
Joseph Kosinski. He did Halo commercials.
Yeah,
basically, David Fincher
they were amazing.
Was getting offered these Halo commercials because they were with the same management company. And he's like, well, I can't do them, but check out this guy, Joe Kosinski.
Well, that's a hell of a...
That's a nice
attaboy. That's a hell of an attaboy.
There you go.
And by the way, Tron is pretty bad, and so is Oblivion.
You know what's good though? The Tron pinball machine.
Yes, obviously. But the point is that visually, I did like them visually, both those movies. I thought he's a very visual director, but story wise, it didn't work as well. I really wanted to like Tron. So wanted to like Tron.
Give that pinball machine a shot.
Yes. But yeah, there are those stories of these directors who get these big movies. But I think those are, again, those shot in the dark lottery ticket things. It's more of the grind of building it slowly. From someone who's tried to hack the system and make that one thing that blows you up or gets the right attention. That's a dangerous place to be because you could keep doing that for a decade.
Yeah, but you see, I feel like there's more. I know Josh Trank is like this weird example, but he made Chronicle, right? That was his first movie, and then he got Fantastic Four, and he was supposed to do Star Wars. You see, even like a Ryan Johnson or a Ryan Coogler who does, Fruitvale Station, then Creed, then Black Panther, right. Like you see a lot more of those examples, or at least we hear about them more than at the Joe Swanberg.
So Fruitvale Station, what was the budget on that?
Probably $1 million or something.
Right. Then from there he went to Creed.
Probably $10 million.
And why did he get Creed? Because he wrote that idea and he came and he pitched it to Sly.
Right. And Sly wasn't even into it until after Fruitvale Station.
Right. So he had to hustle that second job. And he had the access because of Fruitvale Station, but that could have easily gone nowhere. And then from there, that was such a big hit. They're like, oh, wait a minute, we need someone to do Black Panther. He would be and boom, it's just the luck of.
But instead of spending a year distributing Fruitvale Station, he spent that year hustling Sly Stallone. You know what I'm saying?
He wrote the script rather than learning about
everyone has different paths.
Yeah, of course.
It's a path. Look, I would much rather make a movie for $1 million and let someone else distribute it for me, but he was at a different level. coming out the gate. Where did he go to school, by the way? USC. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. So there's a big difference from USC grads that come out, because I know a bunch of USC grads, and there's a connection, and there's you pay for, you earn the money you spend on that school, you get back.
Sure. Well,
knock on wood, to a certain extent. Yeah, not everybody in your class, I'm sure, is a working director.
Yeah.
I've spoken at USC many times. I see the students. It's amazing. But anytime people ask me about film school, they're like, should I go to film school? I'm like, well, yeah, it's cool, but you can, anything you need to learn about filmmaking, you can learn now by yourself. But I'm like, well, I have an opportunity to go to USC. I'm like, can you afford it? Yes, then go. The connections you'll make will set you up for your career. And it's the truth. I mean, you're a USC grad.
Sure. But you still have to hustle.
You still have to hustle. There's no question. But you're hustling here or you're hustling here, Like, it's a lot easier to hustle out of being a grad at USC than being a grad at Broward Community College in Florida.
You're plugged into a network of people that are really committed to succeeding.
I think that's the difference. Yeah.
That's the other thing, too.
That have spent a lot of money or invested a lot of money to succeed.
You've got, quote unquote, the cream of the crop, if you will, in a lot of ways. Even Spielberg got rejected.
I will say this. I love USC. I don't think that the quality of student is that much higher, quote unquote, than any other dedicated film program. Honestly, I think that there's money and some book smarts for sure. The test scores are incredible, but in terms of commitment, which is kind of the main thing, and resilience, as battle tested as any other program.
But the thing is that there's a network. There's a connections that you make, and that
it's
the
also
guys,
based in LA, which makes things very easy.
When you've got the guest speakers that you have coming in talking to you.
Nah, man, that doesn't matter. You could
those are still pretty cool, though.
Yeah, no, it's super cool, super cool.
Yeah, I know.
There's a class. Leonard Maltin teaches a class there that's very cool. But it's all just movies that are gonna be out in 2 weeks, and then the director comes and talks, and that's incredible. But that's $4,000 a class. You know what I mean? That's insane to do.
Right.
When you could go to the DGA and just wait in line and go see the same director and conversation. Exactly.
Right. There's always ways around it. If you can afford film school, it's a wonderful thing. If you need someone to kind of set it all up for you and teach you that way, great. But if you can hustle it yourself, there's so much information on YouTube. There's so many online courses. I mean, I was just watching, the master classes.
Sure.
I have early access to the Ron Howard one. And I sat there watching Ron Howard direct the scene from Frost Nixon. And my mouth was on the floor. I was just watching him. And whether you like his movies or not, I always like his movies.
Are those master classes worth it?
Yes.
I've always
depends on which ones. Some are good, some are not. Like Aaron Sorkin's, I thought was really great. If you want to get into TV writing, Shonda Rhimes is amazing. Werner Herzog's I enjoyed, but there's a lot of it's explain. Yeah,
are you paying for all of these?
Huh?
Are you paying for all of them?
I've paid for some of them, but I
thought it was just subscription.
Now it just turned into subscription.
Oh, I see.
So now you have access to all of them for $180 a year. That's it. So it's not that bad, and you get access to the
$180.
$180.
Okay.
So you get access to their entire 26 lessons.
You should group buy it and review them.
So
I'm still paying off USC, guys. I'll take my time.
But I also just saw Martin Scorsese's, and that was amazing. But the Ron Howard one, I just sitting here watching him direct the scene. And this, and you're sitting there as the director, and I see where he puts a camera, that's not going to work. That's not going to cut. And then you're like, fuck it, cut. God damn it, he's good. And you can see that's invaluable. That's much better than having some guy come into Leonard Maltin's class.
Yeah.
So those things are accessible to us. We wouldn't have killed to have Martin Scorsese talk to us for 2.5, 3 hours.
Well, we used to have to watch the director's commentary.
Right, that was what I on Laserdisc. Yeah. That's what I had it on Laserdisc before the DVDs came out. I had the Raging Bull $125 Criterion.
Hey, man.
You know what I'm saying?
I hope you still have it. That's
I do.
Very cool.
I still have it.
Do you have Casablanca as well?
Of course I have Casablanca.
Buddy.
I have 7.
Fuck yeah. That's
7.
excellent.
That
is some real, talk about street cred right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got some old school stuff.
As long as we're endorsing all this geeky stuff, we should probably start wrapping things up.
Because we could keep talking for another day.
We could talk forever.
And jump into our unpaid endorsements section.
Okay.
Oren, you want to take it away? You got something?
God, I'm going to endorse the worst thing, but I did see Lady Bird, and I know it's probably going to be up for a million Oscars and all that stuff.
How was it?
I loved it. I don't know. It's just like so. The way that Matt talked about Hell and High Water when he endorsed that.
That was such a good movie.
Is like, it's, I mean, obviously very, very, very different movies. And I actually didn't even really like Hell and High Water that much. But there's something just so simple about the setup and just like really amazing performances. In the very first scene of the movie, you find out who the characters are, what their relationship is, and what they want, you know? And then when you see them either getting or not getting it, it's like makes you cry by the end of the movie, you know? And it's a comedy. It's hilarious too. Right. But the lead actress, who nobody can say her name, Saoirse Ronan or whatever, she's doing like an impression of Greta Gerwig. She's Irish, but she's like plays this like girl from Sacramento. You know, it all takes place in Sacramento.
I know. It's about my childhood. But I think that maybe a different part of town than I grew up in.
Well, that's part of what the show's like. She's from kind of the wrong side of the tracks.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
But
I'm looking forward to seeing that one. I want to see that one.
It's great. So check it out and just, it's a good one to just study and how simple a story you can tell. And I think we already endorsed the Meyerowitz stories.
Yeah, Paul did.
But,
I want to see that. Is that good?
But it's free. It's on, well, I mean, if you have Netflix, you can watch it. And it's of a similar genre, but it's another example. That one's like a little more complex of a story.
Who directed it? I mean, yeah.
But but you can see why they're a good couple. I think they're like a good double feature if you watch them on separate nights.
One thing I just finished watching yesterday, actually. Do you guys watch you watch the Marvel stuff on Netflix, like Daredevil and?
Not really.
I watched Jessica Jones.
What'd you think of Jessica?
I love Jessica Jones.
She's great. What a great series.
But I heard Punisher's really good.
I just finished watching Punisher.
Oh, you got into
It's the best one of them all.
Really?
Oh, cool.
Without question. And the reason why I loved it so much was it is the most grounded out of all of them. Because it's just like these two dudes. There's no superpowers. There's no nothing. It's just like straight up. And the way the story is intertwined with the backstory of the villain and how the villain becomes the villain and how that's all connected.
Who's the villain?
I don't want to spoil it.
It's not like a known thing.
It's not straight. You're figuring out who the villain is along the way. You won't know who the villain is, I think, until 8 episodes in or something like that. So it keeps you on your toes the entire time. He actually wears the skull, I think, 3 times in the entire series. So it's all just him, his backstory, building it up. It's just so, and it's,
what's the name of the actor?
Oh God, John.
The guy from
Walking Dead.
Yeah, I guess I don't really watch Walking Dead, but he's in the Tank movie.
Yes, he is.
So good.
He was in Baby Driver too, wasn't he?
Oh yeah.
He was in Baby Driver as well. He's amazing. John B. something. I can't say his last name. But it's if you're even remotely interested.
No, we'll watch it. We're like my wife and I.
It's pretty violent.
So many shows.
Oh, dude,
we're catching up on.
That's what we were just talking about. Look at all the content that we have to.
I just binged all of Curb season 9.
Yeah.
Well,
last night.
I can help you out, Oren, with my endorsement, which is just the pilot episode because the rest of the series hasn't been created yet. For Love You More, which is the Amazon, they always do their pilot seasons where they supposedly we vote on whether or not a show is coming back. But I have a hunch that they've already decided everything already. But Love You More is Bridget Everett's new series. It's fucking great.
Who is she?
So Bridget Everett, you would know her from, she was in Patty Cakes, which didn't do great, but she's in Trainwreck. She's kind of like a New York kind of cabaret comedy person who's been around forever. And she would, at the end of she's in Lady Dynamite as well, if we're talking Netflix shows. But she was always at the end of Amy Schumer. Every Amy Schumer season, it's like she was the final sketch. Anyway, she's got her own show on Amazon Prime called Love You More. It's like in this realm of like grounded comedy, kind of slice of life stuff. But I just found it to be really like raw and funny and emotionally true and also really like over the top in ways that are awesome and incredible. And I was super excited. It is a very adult show. You see some
Not for the
D,
faint of heart.
You see some D in the very first scene. So like
nice balls.
Yeah.
Nice balls.
Yeah.
Swansburg would be
Yeah,
so
you'd be stoked. Yeah, yeah.
stoked.
I guess technically it's the second scene. Anyway, love you more on Amazon.
And how do you
Prime.
watch it?
Amazon Prime. So Alex,
Yes,
thank you
sir.
so much for hanging out, man.
Thank you, man, for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
How can listeners learn more about you? Where can they find you?
And they can find me at indiefilmhustle.com. You can find me on iTunes as well for my podcast and on YouTube. Just type in Indie Film Hustle anywhere on the
On a
Google
computer.
first. On a computer, you will find me.
Should I ask Siri?
Yeah.
I want to ask her. Where's my phone?
Boy, Oren, you love asking Siri. Well, Oren's asking about
Indie Film Hustle.
All right. Well, Siri's letting Oren down.
Alex, sorry.
You can follow me at Mr. Matt Enlow, and you can follow our show at Just Shoot It Pod.
And I'm at Smitey Pyleg, and Alex is at
Indie Film Hustle. I had a ball talking to those guys, and please definitely check out their podcast at justshootitpodcast.com. They're a lot of fun, man, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of fun going down to their place and recording kind of live with actual people in the room, which I rarely get to do. I'm usually doing everything over the internet, so it was actually fun to have a energetic conversation about the film industry. So hope you guys liked it. If you want the show notes for this episode, just head over to indiefilmhustle.com/206. And as always, keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.